Brigadier General Matt Higer here in the PA studios at Edwards Air Force Base. Over my right shoulder, currently off camera, but you'll see her in a second, Lieutenant Colonel Michelle Westy, our Public Health Emergency Officer, and also our Occupational Medicine Doctor. And then with me on camera right now, Chief Master Sergeant Ian Eischen. We are here to interact with you for Chief and I the next 45 minutes. If there's a few medical questions that move on for the last 10 to 15 minutes or so, Lieutenant Colonel Westy will happily be able to hang out and answer any of those after Chief and I need to get on the road. As I shout out on a First Friday, I want to highlight that, in fact, it is a First Friday. And what does that mean? It means a lot of things, Air Force historically, but tonight it means that there's stuff going on at the club. There's a First Friday on the first Friday of the month in November at the club today. If you're a member, or even if you're not, there's a lot of good activities that are often well, they're all COVID friendly, but they're often happening in and around the club on this evening. This afternoon and this evening. So please go out and enjoy that. That's a great FSS activity and facility that's available to you and for you. They've been really benchmark and anchor on the team as we've gone through the last 10 months, making sure that we had meals available for takeout, and now you can dine in a relatively small capacity, but you can dine in there as well. And bar services available in limited time there as well, to include tonight. So if you can get out there to that FSS facility, great. And while I'm talking about FSS, I want to throw out a huge kudo to the entire FSS team and all of their partners for the events that led up to a highly successful trick-or-treating on base last Saturday, the 31st of October. It was not just that we trick-or-treated on base. It was the build-up to that. It was the messaging, the consistent messaging of that. What are the rules? What are we going to do? Who can do what, where, when, and why that FSS led, and it was exceptionally successful. The two big events that my family and I participated in, one was Trunk or Treat. That was in combination with the Civil Engineering Group. Your resident advocate and Fire and Emergency Services, a couple other folks in CE led that. It was dozens of cars, and they ran out of candy, which is a great thing to do in their third hour there. So if you made it out, you know what I'm talking about. If you didn't, you missed it. I highly recommend you get there next year. So thank you to all of you that volunteered for the Trunk or Treat, and thank you to CE and FSS for setting it up and advertising that. And then pivot to later that day on the 31st, the trick-or-treating. It was great for me to see kids out in costume. I observed what I would consider to be very good respect for the virus and the pandemic that we happen to be in. I noticed a couple of sidebar conversations, probably amongst neighbors that hadn't had a chance to talk face-to-face from 8 to 10 feet away even for months. And I thought that was also a very healthy sidebar that happened there. Lots of folks had great innovative ideas on how to not get inside somebody else's bubble. Now, my absolute favorite, and so whoever you are and whatever it was, we can name an award after you, but the ghost on a string that floated down from your porch to the receiving area where the kids were waiting for it was phenomenal. And a lot of you had other good ideas on how to keep that physical separation too, but that one was amazing. So awesome. And for those of you that don't know what house I'm talking about, I assume it was a dude in the suit, but he was wearing a dinosaur suit to boot. So it was fantastic. I loved it. Another thing that I want to push out for the entire community, we are doing very well, especially relative to the nation and still relative to California and the Aerospace Valley on Edwards, because the folks that live here, the folks that work here, and the folks that affiliate with this installation understand why we're doing what we're doing. And because of that, you double down on respecting the rules because you understand the basis behind the rules. I appreciate greatly that those of you that don't reside on the installation came in and did trunk or treat, and then it looks like overwhelmingly everybody complied with the expectation, and that was that if you didn't live on base, you didn't trick or treat on base, and we saw that in the numbers there, so thank you very much. I recognize that may have been a little bit of a sacrifice for those of you that didn't live here, but it was a great way for us to mitigate risk and still get a good activity off for the kids and I think the parents as well. So congratulations on a successful week, FSS, and to be really blunt, the whole Edwards community on the Halloween week that ended last Saturday. With that in mind, we're a week after that, so right now we are not seeing any spikes in locally because of that potential I'll say, infection opportunity for the virus. It'll be a few more days before we have all those numbers in hand, but again, it looks like we did a good job. And if you got lucky because you didn't fully comply with the best principles, then you got lucky. But for those of you that didn't get lucky, those of you that did it intentionally, thank you very much. And so that's my opening gratitude. One other thing I want to push while the questions are rolling in here, remember it's 707-412-8922. As many of you know, early in this pandemic, there were directives flowing down from the Department of Defense and others, sometimes on a daily basis and often multiple times a day. I was trying to stabilize or minimize the amplifying whip out to the installation, and that it really necked down and really quieted down in how fast those changes started hitting us in June. Based on that, we called it the counter-COVID comprehensive directive that I wrote one in June, signed one on June 8th, and signed an update about a month later on the last day of June of 2020. That directive was in place, and it turned out to be very stable and highly operationally effective. I reviewed it as promised every month and looked at ways and places that we could potentially gain back more capability, and then decided that at about a quarter, a calendar quarter length, it was enough. So I drafted with some good help and good teamwork around the installation, and that new directive signed November 3rd, so Election Day, November 3rd, 2020, is on the street. I encourage you to go to the edwards.af.mil/COVID site, download that. It's now just 4 pages. A lot of it has been compressed, and much of it is now what we just do, so there's no reason for me to keep it in a directive. Most of what you'll see there will resemble what was there before. There are some updates in that. I'd like to highlight one of those, and that is that there's now, instead of a paragraph or paragraphs on who can access the base when, there's a matrix. So down one side of the matrix, it says at these HPCon levels, and then across the other axis in the matrix, the categories of the people: mission critical, mission essential, operationally necessary, retirees, their dependents, and DoD visitors, or veteran visitors, and then visitors altogether. Let me correct that third column: retirees, retiree dependents, and veterans with access. And then the last column are visitors. And then there's a matrix there that you can reference. There's a couple notes on that, but one of the important things is that it's relatively straightforward to look at that matrix and figure out what applies in what HPCon. And then in addition to that, the limited access at HPCon Bravo, which is where we are now, and if we have to ratchet back up to Charlie, for retirees and visitors will be on all non-duty days, and the duty day for retirees and their dependents of Wednesday. So the Wednesday duty day is not a change, but the access to the base without restriction at HPCon Bravo in all other HPCons and on all non-duty days. That's a change that I'm very comfortable moving to, and I thank you for your patience getting there. And I encourage you to come on the installation and see what services and activities are available for you on those non-duty days, to include Saturdays and then all holidays. And that would include Veterans Day, the 11th of November, coming up next Wednesday. So with that as a push of gratitude, and there's been an update, I'm open to questions, and if there aren't questions, then we'll hear from Public Health and Chief. So, Chief, do you have anything?
First question actually is it's a medical question, not specifically public health, ma'am, but it is for our veterinary clinic. This person's wondering if there's anything going on at the vet clinic. They've been trying to call for a little while and had issues. Is that I know we've had issues with our appointment line a few times as far as the number of calls coming through. Does that extend to the vet clinic as well?
So I'll have to get back with the person on that, because
Okay.
I'm not sure for the vet clinic specifically.
Okay, no problem at all.
So with any luck, we'll be able to phone a friend and get an answer back to you. So if you ask that question, hang on. We may be able to get one back to you in near real time. So we'll do what we can.
Ma'am, while we're waiting for the next question, do you have anything you'd like to speak on the public health side?
Just a concurrence with how we're doing in the community on base, and thanking everybody for really demonstrating good behavior. The cases are increasing in the United States quite dramatically, especially in certain states in the central area of the United States, the North Dakota, South Dakota. So definitely it's something to be concerned about. We are going into that third wave. We're starting to see some hospitalization rates increase as well. But California in general is doing fairly well, but we are seeing a little bit of an increase in the rates for California as well. So again, very happy that everybody's doing the right behaviors, and this is not the time to let complacency come through. It's really the time to buckle down and continue that, because we want to be able to get through this winter without any really major issues, and hopefully not having to cut down services and things like that as we're starting to ramp up. So appreciate that.
Okay, sir. We did get one question in, and we've actually had this question. It comes up time and time again. But why does Edwards and why do bases differ from each other? We've got different bases with different rules. Is there a reason that Edwards may be different from, say, China Lake or Beale or Travis or even Florida?
Yes. So the answer to the question is a one-word answer, and the answer is why do they differ? Because they're different, right? So each installation has its own unique mission operating environment, its own local area, and different populations. That probably isn't exactly enough of a complete answer, however, but there are different rules and different duty restrictions and access restrictions, primarily because the installations themselves are unique. If you, for example, I'll just talk about the Air Force installations, then we can talk about the Army and Navy installations as quick extrapolations. But the mission set and the mission requirements, even between the two installations that the 412 Test Wing operates, between Air Force Plant 42 and Edwards Air Force Base, are different. For example, on the access points at Air Force Plant 42, who can go through those access points are controlled by the contractors who wholly operate those sites. Those are known as they're known as government-owned but contractor-operated facilities. The land is government-owned, but the facility itself is not, and therefore their access rules are the ones that apply because they're wholly contained and they have individual access in and out. So that is one example of the uniqueness that exists on Air Force Plant 42 and why there are different access rules that you might find at Lockheed at Plant 42 than at Northrop Grumman and then at Boeing and then also at NASA. And those four rules might not be perfectly aligned with what we have on the rest of Air Force Plant 42, but they'll be in general alignment and for the same reasons. You'll note that access to Air Force Plant 42, there are no services there. So I have not addressed, nor do I think there's a need to address, access to Air Force Plant 42 for retirees, retiree dependents, veterans, or visitors. So if you're there, you're probably there for a mission critical, mission essential, or an operationally necessary reason, and there's no other reason to be there. And that's why there's actually a difference between Plant 42 and Edwards, and that's just one installation commander. Now when I look to other Air Force installations, March has a very, very different mission set and requirements and access and community than LA Air Force Base. LA Air Force Base has no flight line and no flight operations, and their workforce there, I assume or presume, would be a little bit more compatible with teleworking, unless they're in a classified environment. And then if you bounce up to Northern California and look at the difference between Travis and Beale, their mission sets and their locale, a little bit more rural up at Beale than and a little bit more, not I won't say urban, but a little bit closer to the Bay Area, Metro Bay Area at Travis. They're going to drive different accesses as well. It's not in California, but there are some bases that are geographically separated. So they have a Area A, Area B, or Area 1, Area 2. One base that I am very familiar with has a part of the base that's divided by a major road. That part of the base has most of their primary mission activity on it. It also happens to have their BX and their commissary. Across the road, the other side of the base is where the hospital is and where housing is and a couple other activities like that. That installation commander had different access rules on one side of his installation versus the other for the majority of COVID. So the bottom line answer to the question that this person surfaces on why do the rules differ is that the National Chain of Command, National Command Authority has delegated command and control down to appropriate levels, and local commanders, installation commanders in this case, are allowed to make their own decisions based on how they see their installation, the risks of their installation, and the mission that they are charged to execute on behalf of the national defense of the United States. Now, full disclosure, part of my mission set as an installation is to provide, when compatible with my DoD required mission, also to provide access to benefits and other things that folks need as beneficiaries and also as entitlements if you're on active duty or you're a dependent of an active duty member. And so trying to balance those two is also very unique. I'll give another good example inside of California that exists between Travis and Edwards. Travis has a full-up inpatient hospital, right? And so the access required, because they have an emergency room, because there's all kinds of folks, because they have a delivery ward, right? The access required for that part of the installation will be very different than the access required because Edwards Air Force Base only has a medical clinic with a pharmacy and no emergent or emergency care. And so those are operational differences between the two. And so that's a little vignette, a little swing through the basis for some of the reasons that are different within Air Force installations. And now, if you pivot to, for example, my neighbor just up the road at China Lake, the decision to change health protection condition levels for that installation has not been redelegated down to the installation or the garrison commander. And so all of those bases have the same, all of the bases in that region, so I believe it's the southwest region of the United States, they're all still at HPCon Charlie with some very significant restrictions in base access on the Navy installations in that region. The Air Force delegated quickly back down to the installation commander, and Edwards, actually a green dot and a sea of red, went very rapidly in AFMC and also in the region to unrestricted travel in and out for mission essential, mission critical, and operationally necessary. And so I'm very proud of how the installation has performed through this, and I hope that gives a little bit more insight into why the differences exist. And that can transfer to all kinds of things, not just HPCon. It can also transfer to force protection conditions and other base access and base requirements as well. Chief, anything else?
Yes, sir. We have a question on the Antelope Valley Transit Authority. When will they be able to start running again?
So the AVTA bus route through the installation is likely to not start up until we get to HPCon Alpha. That is something that I'll say I've delegated the close control or close decision on that to the Mission Support Group commander. When he thinks it's about the time and about ready, then we can do that. One of the problems that we run into if we start that up is that there are people that might get on the bus that wouldn't be able to get in the installation. And now what do you do when the bus gets to the edge of the installation? And that is not necessarily a scenario I want to put the bus driver in. I certainly don't want to put those individuals in that be DOD ID card holders. And I also don't want to put the defenders that are out on the gate protecting all of us in the scenario where they have to filter through a bus differently on one day of the week versus the other. So those are the kind of considerations we have into play. If you are impacted by not having that bus service available, please talk to your chain of command. I suspect that there are other options we have available to help offset either your commute or your drive or some type of an expense. So please sing up, and we can get to, I think, a better place than an all-or-nothing solution. But it'll probably be HPCon Alpha before Colonel Harris recommends to me that we turn back on that AVTA route.
Yes, sir. Next question. Can retirees use the base gym on Wednesdays?
So that's a great question for FSS. And again, in the spirit of delegating down to the lowest level commander to make those decisions, the driving factor of who can access the gym is the limit of the number of people that can be in the gym, and that's based on a public health determination. So right now we're capped at 100 people. And we're even turning away active duty members if we hit that 100-person cap. So there will be scenarios on a Wednesday where the base gym is turning away active duty folks because we can't get to any more than that. So the high demand times would be in the morning or just before duty hours in the morning. Now, if you're a retiree and you want to be on base on a Wednesday and use the base gym later in the day, I think that's well in the trade space and certainly very reasonable if the load is okay at the gym. We have turned the base gym access back on for, it never was turned off for active duty folks, but it's turned back on for civilians that work on the installation, and then there are different hours and days of the week for dependents, typically the adult dependents of folks that live on the installation as well. So I think that's, if it doesn't exist already, it's super close. And if you are a retiree that would like to work at the gym, work out at the gym, talk to FSS and see what solutions they can work with you and for you. And I don't want to get in their chili on that, and I'm sure they appreciate it. So that's my response. Go ahead,
And
Chief.
one thing to add to that too, sir. So we still, and the reason we kept it open for active duty is because we do have a fitness requirement. We are still pushing airmen downrange, and we need to make sure that even amidst a pandemic, they are fit, they're ready to go, and they're ready to deal with any hardships on themselves, on their mind, on their bodies. As we get into, you mentioned that four-letter word that starts with a W, and as wind starts to pick up, as the temperatures start to drop, outdoor activity, which you can go to the gym right now and see a lot of people working out outdoors, but that will decrease, which will increase the number of people in the gym. And so those situations where we are turning people away will happen, I believe, more often as we get through winter. Also right now, for our active duty force, Air Force turned off PT tests all the way up until January, and as of right now, January is still on. And so we all have to be prepared to do our PT test and pass our PT test in January, which is always a little bit harder after Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that was prior to pandemic. So based on what the wing commander said, be ready for that. And it's just, if you do get turned away, anybody, even our active duty force, please be ready for that and take advantage of those peak times and those early morning and afternoon times that we have for everybody. Let me see if there's a question that came in, sir. Oh, one of the questions that came in, and we don't have an answer, but I wanted to bring it up in front of everybody. So somebody asked if we were going to allow expanded use of the dining facility on Thanksgiving and Christmas. The answer is, I don't know. When the pandemic started, we limited all DFAC use except for our airmen that were on meal card, because that is the only food that they have access to. The DFAC is their pantry, the DFAC is their kitchen. And so even the active duty force that was allowed to go get lunch and breakfast at the DFAC was turned off. As the pandemic and really our distribution stayed where it needed to be, and we felt that we would not endanger their ability to get the food that they need, we started turning that back on for some of our emergency responders and the people who were eating at the DFAC before. Based on this, I'll talk to the mission support group, and we'll put out a plan for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, for those holiday meals. I can say for our dorm dwellers, that's going to happen. We are going to have a great Thanksgiving dinner. I can't wait to go out there and serve and eat with everybody. We will do the same thing for Christmas. But as far as expanding that use to civilians, to dependents, to retirees, please stay tuned. But we'll have those discussions with mission support group to make sure we make the right decision.
Yeah, I do want to foot something that I am well aware of for Thanksgiving meal. Right now, you're going to have to. It will not be at dining facility prices, but the club is opening for Thanksgiving, and boy, Katie is knocking some serious deep balls at the club right now. But she told me they're going to have, I think it's meals for 6. That are takeout Thanksgiving dinner available. I recommend you pre-order, and if you need pricing or other details on that, please contact the club. It's easy for me to brag on FSS and the good things they're doing and the innovation that they're bringing to this as we agilely move through some really uncharted and unprecedented territories. But so if you're looking for a place to not cook but still have a good Thanksgiving meal on base, Katie at the club. Katie's the manager of your club, Club Muroc. She's got a takeout Thanksgiving dinner that's already in work for anyone that orders or pre-orders. Okay. We're not getting anything rung in, so I've got a couple other thoughts, and I'm sure Chief and Colonel Westy do as well. Remember, if you have a question, 707-412-8922. I'd like to drive home. These town halls started because we couldn't do anything face-to-face. They continued because we get good engagement with you, and we used to have them multiple times a week, and now we're just in one on Friday at 1 o'clock, and I continue to commit to you very, very, very stable interaction opportunities. One of the things that I want to re-highlight, and we haven't talked about it in a little while, is that I see Edwards simultaneously executing our wartime mission in 4 very distinct ways. One wartime mission that we execute every day, and is really our go-to-war mission, is Future Force Readiness. That is the banner test mission. It's future lethality, it's upgrades to programs, it's major weapon systems development, and those kinds of activities. That will, sometimes it'll be a few weeks until what we do today impacts the warfighter in a positive way. Oftentimes it's a decade or more, as we're doing very early research and development type of test. But that is our banner test wing core mission. But there are 3 others that are also extremely important. The second one is we are all in cyber warfare. Whether you think of that or not, we are all in a contested domain. Literally, we're broadcasting to you right now in that domain. And so using it in a way that we want to use it and protecting all of us from those that would do us harm in the cyber domain is a fight that we're all in. There are cyber warriors on this base, the 412th Comm Squadron. Right now, a shout out to that team. They're the ones looking and monitoring and helping defend all of us there, and we all have a part to play in that. Cyber hygiene is the typical phrase that I've heard used, but be smart, continue to be wise in what you do online as we push back in that warfighting domain known as cyber. So that's the second place that we're fighting. The third place that we're fighting is kind of the reason that we're here broadcasting to you, is that we're fighting a pandemic. We're fighting against an enemy that is microscopic, that that propagates in droplets that you exhale or sneeze or cough. That is a new domain for us, or a new fight for us, but we are continuing to fight with it, fight through it, and reestablish a new normal. I'm not going to go into more details on that, but that is a new one. But the one that we've had for a very long time as a military, maybe since the beginning of the military, is to be ready to fight tonight, right? And so based on that, Edwards Air Force Base is still preparing folks to deploy. Chief talked about the nexus that we have there with the gym, making sure people are physically ready to go downrange. But we also have a deployment machine that is still going and sending folks downrange. The most recent increment of Edwards Airmen that are on their way downrange literally left this morning. I was with a group of folks this morning at a relatively dark hour of 03:30, wishing off 11 of our defenders, wishing them farewell as they move off to their embarkation location, and then they're going to go downrange for what is likely to be about a 179 and come back. That squadron and other squadrons have continued to feed people in to deploy them today so they can fight tonight. And that's the fourth way that Edwards is contributing to our national defense, and that is contributions that are existing as you and I talk today. And none of that counts the real combat requirement and combat necessity we have of protecting our installation, which we all do as a matter of course every day and every week as well. So as a reminder, those are the four things that we continue to do, and I'm very proud that we are continuing to do those very well, in many cases MAGCOM leading during and through the pandemic. Chief, anything else?
No new questions have come in, sir.
Any other thoughts?
No, it's just we talk about this, and I can go on and on about all the cool things that are, we had all the great run up to Halloween. On base, it felt very normal. There was a little bit weird, but we wear masks on Halloween anyway, and some people had a few extra masks on, but for the most part, it looked like a normal Halloween on any base, which I think was a great thing, especially for our elementary school and our younger children. They got a chance to have fun and do a normal thing in the middle of the pandemic. I really do hope that good portions of Thanksgiving and Christmas are very similar. There's always going to be some things that we have to do that are a little bit different just because of the situation that we're in. But as we learn more about the virus and as we get more knowledgeable and comfortable, we're able to still mitigate risk, but it doesn't become a big block on our lives. It just becomes part of it. And so that's been nice to see. Amidst all that, we got to do an ALS graduation yesterday. We got to name some distinguished graduates and Levito winner. And that's a normal thing that we have to do. It's new supervisors who are now going out there and leading airmen. And so the fact that we're still able to train those airmen in person, the fact that we still have airmen going TDY when necessary, they're going to courses, they're still developing, the amount of new things happening within this wing. I mean, we're moving. It's different. Everything is a little bit different, but we're still moving and we're still doing awesome things. So it's just great to be a part of the team. Yeah,
I fully concur, Chief. I think the thing that is most, it's humbling, right? But it is most impressive to me is how when I am able to, so I'll go back to a question that somebody asked. Somebody asked, hey, what about retirees in the gym on Wednesday? And my answer to that was, go ask FSS because I've delegated that decision down to them. That concept of delegating things down to the lowest level is very core to us as airmen, right? We have decentralized execution, and that's a core tenet to how we think and operate as airmen, and it applies to more places than just air and space power. But the neat thing as I've watched everybody adapt and learn from each other and crosstalk the last 8 to 10 months has really opened up some unique and different opportunities that were maybe known to us but really not leveraged or used heavily. An example that we used to talk a lot about in these town halls that hasn't surfaced much recently, but teleworking is a huge opportunity, and the tools and the applications and the availability of that telework is orders of magnitude better than it was, orders of magnitude better in November than it was in January of this year. And so kudos to all of you that are a part of that mission enabling or mission providing infrastructure. Thank you very much to all the folks that have diverted or dedicated resources to give the hardware, software, and other equipment required to those that need to telework, the ability to telework. And I cannot brag enough on all of us, literally, because Chief and I have done it some days as well. All of us that have been effective teleworkers. And so as you look at what we've done and how we've morphed and adapted, there's still a lot left to do, but as I look at ways that you kept your teams together, the ways that you got more efficiency and in some cases more effectiveness as well as you distributed the force, there's a lot of greatness that's happened out of that I think we're just going to keep naturally. I think remote hiring, remote work is going to be a relatively realistic thing for us to consider. Certainly long-distance telework is something that Air Force Materiel Command is doing right now, and I think we're going to keep it in a permanent or somewhat permanent manner. And there are other opportunities like that we've really, made some just really, really tasty lemonade that we can drink for a long time out of these lemons known as a pandemic. So I could not be more proud of the way that when you delegate folks back the authority, go use these principles, but think agilely and think innovatively. I'm still amazed at the solutions that we've all created, and then the sharing of those. You don't hold the ideas either yet. You definitely let everybody know where and how those happen, and I couldn't be more proud to watch and learn about how that stuff has happened. Chief?
Yes, sir. Next question. So a lot of the things on base are, every week we've got something else opening up. Has there been any talk about when we're going to open intramural sports?
Yeah, so I often laugh when someone hears a question and then responds back with, wow, that's a great question, which means that's usually code for that's a really tough question, or I haven't thought it fully through, or things like that. But so intramural sports for adults, very different than intramural kids activities. And so there are two organizations that are pressing on that. The answer depends a lot on two things. Number one, who the participants are. Kids are going to get a little bit more of a safety protection or a safety bubble around them than I would for consenting adults that participate in a similar sport. And also the sport itself is going to have to be looked at or scrubbed for those types of things. So it's open and available if we can do it in a relatively safe manner. But I think what we're going to see here is that the weather and the season to do things outside, so think maybe softball, as one that might come back before others. Probably easier to do softball outside with good spacing than it is to do basketball, as an example. Those are going to be at the FSS lead determination on when it makes sense in consultation with public health. The children's activities, children's sports also in FSS. I think we're going to need to be back at Alpha and maybe HPCon 0 before we full on go back to kids sports and activities. But if you come up with an idea for something that is a modified or slightly modified or alternate way to do any of that, don't hold back that good idea. Approach FSS and the activities folks and say, here's what we're thinking about doing. What do you think? That is the way that we make our new normal. We just don't just hope for the return to the pre-COVID normal, which in my strong opinion, we're not going back to. So that's a non-answer right now, but that's I'll say the general direction I see us marching on that question, Chief. Michelle, while you've been sitting here listening to the questions, or anything else on your mind that you want to share with the public here on a Friday, the 6th of November?
Yes, sir. So just to spin off on what you said about the teleworking, the other successes that we've had that's probably going to be sustained is some of the telemedicine, telehealth that we've been doing as well from the medical group. So those are some great initiatives and things that I think, from Air Force Medical is probably trying to been doing for a while, but this pandemic just kind of pushed it forward. And so I think a lot of that will sustain as well to get access, better patient care and better access for patient care immediately delivered to your home basically, and be able to talk with the provider through a lot of good telemedicine platforms. So I know that they are pursuing more and more of that and looking more into that for some sustainability across a lot of the Air Force medical treatment facilities. So hopefully that will be something that will be goodness from this pandemic. The other thing I wanted to advocate for is, continue to do these great ideas. We had great ideas for Halloween. Continue to look at great ideas for Thanksgiving, for ways to socially connect, visit friends and family. I know a lot of people are trying to be able to fly home to go see their families. So just remember ways of how to do that safely, because we don't want you to come back and have COVID or have experienced that and have issues from that. So creative ways is really great in that, and I think I know that we can do that. I know that we can do that as a community and still socially connect and have that have a great time, but do it safely. Some of the other things that you can do for your protection is the flu shot. So the flu shot is readily available at a lot of different pharmacies in the community. So if you're a TRICARE beneficiary, you should be able to go to one of the participating pharmacies, get your flu shot from the pharmacist. As a dependent, active duty can do that as well, but they do need a referral from their primary care doctor. And then all we do ask is that you bring back proof of your vaccination to our immunizations clinic so that we can put it in the system. We are going to be getting our flu vaccines here on Edwards. Right now they have still some limited capacity only because the manufacturer hasn't pushed it out yet, but we do have some now for our high-risk groups, which are folks over 65 years of age, as well as our children lower than 3 years of age, so younger than 3 years of age. That is readily available right now at the immunizations clinic. All you have to do is call our appointment line to make that appointment, 661-277-7118. We are hopeful that we will get our flu vaccine, a big shipment, after the 15th, and be able to distribute that to the majority of our active duty. And I'm very hopeful that by the end of November, we'll have a full complement of vaccinations to get that vaccine distributed to everybody on base. So please do look out for that on the medical group Facebook page. But get your flu shot. If you can't get it through us, definitely get it through local pharmacies or through your own provider. That'll be a really, really good protection as we're going into this flu season. And so it'll really help limit the numbers for flu, and it'll also help combat some of the hospitalizations and other things, death rates and things like that are going on for this flu season. And then just make sure that we're still following the rules, wearing the mask when we're ever around other people, trying to really physically distance, and washing your hands. Washing your hands is very, very important. So as we go through this flu season, again, very, very happy about our local community. So just keep doing those good measures and keep the innovation going on how to really socially connect with keeping up the good behaviors. And that's all I have to say. Oh, one more thing too, we are still doing our surveillance tests. There is a surveillance program that is out there that the Med Group is doing with other MAGCOM or other medical treatment facilities in MAGCOM and the Air Force. So that is right now that we are identifying active duty folks to come and get invited to get the surveillance test. They're going to be notified through their units by a member in their unit that they've been volunteered or asked to come for a voluntary test. I would encourage people, if they are invited to get tested for our surveillance test, to come get tested. It is a voluntary test. It is just a good surveillance just to see how we're doing as a community. Please don't be afraid of it. It is an oral swab test. It's very, very easy to do. And it's actually a swallow swab that you do just around the cheeks and inside the mouth. Please come and get tested. And it's something that we are trying to ramp up for the community. And so we just need participation. It is voluntary, but I highly encourage it to come and get tested. Our testing center, just so everybody knows, is open from 7:30 to 11:30 every morning when the Med Group is open. And we are currently testing folks who are active duty, who are asymptomatic, that just wants to get tested. Although we do highly encourage that you follow up with your primary care manager, and that if you are sick, that you do stay at home. We are also testing mission essential personnel. We are testing people who may have been in close contact with somebody that had COVID. If you have any questions on that, please call Public Health at 277-2244. But we are open and we are testing. And we are encouraging the surveillance testing. And there's definitely more to come. There's some, the COVID vaccine probably will be coming sometime this winter time or into the early part of the next year. The Operation Warp Speed, we are participating in that, and we are gearing up to be ready. So when those vaccines do drop, we will be distributing that. Again, most likely it will be on a voluntary basis, but those are a lot of things that we're working through with the Med Group to be able to offer as continued protection for our members in the community.
Thanks, Michelle, for all those updates. I'll tell you, there's a couple things in there that I could easily riff on. We're down to some real short period of time here for Chief and I. So we are dusting off our point of distribution vaccination planning so that when the COVID vaccine does arrive, if it arrives in large enough quantities, we can do some relatively large inoculations. Initial indications right now are that the first shipments that arrive are going to arrive in a volunteer status only and only open and available for active duty. But those are still weeks and weeks out, if not months or more. The second thing there that I want to riff on for that Lieutenant Colonel Westy talked about was COVID testing. Early in the pandemic, we had a national deficit in the number of test kits available. That has swapped, and so now we have a lot more liberal opportunities to test, to include if your commander or director says, I need you to get tested because you're mission essential, even if you're asymptomatic. And your primary care provider can also get you in there real quick. So I encourage you to do that if you have any concerns about it. The third one is from a planning and opening and rollout perspective that I want to really foot stomp the partnership and the importance of it. Last night, the 412 Test Wing and Colonel Jason Harris, the Mission Support Group Commander, hosted the latest in a town hall from the Muroc Joint Unified School District. So we had both principals and the superintendent there. Every Friday, the superintendent publishes a response to questions. You can find that on their website, and he wanted me to let everybody know that in this broadcast. Another really important thing that Mr. Cordes talked about was that he expects to have his plan out for reopening late November and no later than the school board meeting in December. That's not a timeline for him opening late November, early December. That's a when is their plan going to be out, vetted, and ready to go, and then they'll implement it when the conditions permit. So I think that was an important step, another indication of the good partnership that exists between the Muroc leadership and the installation leadership. Chief, we've got about 2 minutes for a question. Anything rung in?
Yes, sir. We got one question, and it's a pretty important one, so I wanted to make sure that you were able to address it. So the person asks, what are military to civilian employees supposed to do? So I'm guessing that's a military and civilian married. So what are they supposed to do if they're being forced to come back to work, even though they have young children who are home and having to homeschool? And some of these children might actually have learning disabilities or other issues, and even I don't care who your kid is, it's going to be hard doing homeschooling and then coming to work. So how do you address that in this type of situation, sir? Yes.
So there's a couple assumptions in your question, and that is if it's a dual earner household, one active duty and one civilian. And it kind of doesn't matter if the civilian is an employee of the Department of Defense or just as another form of employment. But if you have kids that are in your house that don't have the opportunity to go to school and there's no other child care or daycare available, which is another big part of this equation, that is something that the active duty service member needs to highlight rapidly to their supervisor and their chain of command. If that doesn't surface in a solution quickly that works for your family, now it's not necessarily going to be painless, but it will be a solution that still allows you both to retain your jobs, the kids to do what they need to do for school, and even if it's a couple weeks or a couple months bridge, we can get you there. But we're not going to be able to do that or get you there if the active duty member doesn't highlight that to their chain of command. If you can't find a good solution, first sergeants, the chiefs, you're welcome to talk to the squadron commanders, directors, group leadership, and even contact the front office if there's something that we might be able to do to mitigate your scenario. I've got a great example in our that works with the front office. She is an active duty airman. Her husband also has a job, and he's a civilian. They have kids that are both doing online school and also require childcare when they're not in school, multiple kids. And so what they have done in concert with her supervisors, because she's the active duty member, and his, is they have built her schedule as an active duty member around what her husband's job requires. Now that means her day is very long and her duty day start is relatively late. But there's actually some benefit there for our team and our front office in that she's able to cover the latter part of the afternoon and deep into the evening which is actually a benefit to the team from phone coverage and work coverage. And there's less time that the front office is not manned throughout the day. And so that's an example of a dual earner household with kids that are currently in school and at home, on a way that we can get to a solution that is executable. Now, I'll be the first to say that is not an optimum setup, but that is something that's executable, and that family appears to be doing quite well. And if they need help, additional help along the way, I know that Airman's going to ask, and we'll continue to mitigate where we can. Chief, did I get it, or the retext?
No, you did, sir. And I think the one thing to add to that is just because our member comes in at around 1 o'clock does not mean that they start their day at 12 or 1 o'clock. They start their duty day with us, but their duty day to their family starts much, much earlier. 5, 6 a.m., getting breakfast ready, getting kids taught. So we are closely watching the member to make sure that they're rested, they're taken care of, they're okay. It's a lot of stress. It's a second job is what ended up happening to most of our people. And so we need to watch as supervisors, as leaders, as teammates. We need to watch our people, watch for those signs of fatigue. And we have to be extra understanding, even if we don't have children, and extra empathetic if we don't, and we have a hard time understanding. Ask a lot of questions and try to find out where you can help them. We're all in this weird situation together. We have been since March, and in a bad way, we will continue to be, but in a good way, we're going to be continued to be here as a community together until this is over. And even after, we'll just be dealing with something else. So, sir, I think we both have to get out of here.
Chief and I need to run. So if anything's running in medically, we'll